Today I'm sharing with you how you can take these gorgeous naturally dyed papers and turn them into some unique and stunning DIYs. Hey, it's Donna here. I'm so happy to have you join me today. For this project, you're going to need one of your papers. I've got the onion dyed paper, a tea towel, a spray mister, as well as a protected heat surface such as an ironing board and a heated iron. I've got mine heated to about medium high. I've sprayed the tea towel just lightly, and now I am pressing over the tea towel. I needed to remove the wrinkles, or at least most of the wrinkles, out of the onion dyed paper. So I'm trying to make sure that I don't drench my tea towel. I just wanted a light spray so I can release some of those wrinkles that are in our paper. Next, I'm going to remove the tea towel, and now I am going to iron directly onto the paper. This way here, that'll smooth it out as a bit of a curve was created to the paper, and I wanted to get rid of that. I just didn't want to spray any of the water directly onto the paper because I didn't want any more distortion to happen to this paper. So I'm not going to get all the wrinkles out, but I did get it as flat as I could. Next, you're going to need a nice sturdy piece of cardstock. My cardstock is slightly bigger than my paper, but that's okay. If yours isn't, that's all right as well. You want to make sure that one edge is lined up, and then you're going to use a low tack tape such as washi tape across that top edge, and then you're going to fold it over so you're attaching both the dyed paper as well as the cardstock. I want to be able to put this through a printer, and this allows me to do so. So I've got, according to my printer, I had to flip it upside down. I put the washi end first, and that way here it would print out properly. This image came from the Graphics Fairy, both images. I will have that linked for you down below. You just have to follow the usage terms on that website. Once you have your images printed out to the size that you want, you can then remove the washi tape gently. A little bit of the paper did lift, but it wasn't enough to affect the way the image looked. Now I'm going to be using these picture frames that I got from the thrift store a while ago, and I really like the antique gold on them. I'm just removing the backing. It's got a really nice wood panel, which is nice. You know, it's a better quality. I also have removed the glass, and I'm using the glass as my template, so I know the size that I need to cut out to fit within my frame. So I am working on a nice flat hard surface, and I'm also just testing to make sure I've got the right image or right placement for my image. And once you have that, you can trace around your glass with a pencil, and then you can cut it out. Now I'm using my Fiskars paper trimmer so I get a nice straight edge. You can also use a steel ruler and a craft knife to cut up along the line as well. So I'm just going to trim off those excess pieces, and you can set those aside because you can use those for some other crafts. Once you've got your image cut out, you can do this two ways. I'm going to show you this one without the glass in place. I just put the paper in place, put the glass behind our image, and then I will put the backing back. Now that will just give you a really rustic, natural look to the paper. You don't have the shine or the glare from the glass. For the second image here, I did put the glass in place, and you can see the difference here. I personally like it without the glass, but of course feel free to choose whichever way you would like. For this next project, I'm using these beautiful appliques that I got from BB Crafts a while ago. I coffee dyed them. You use the same technique that you would do for your papers, except I let these ones air dry. I also have this faux leather twine that I got from BB Craft. I grabbed this journal. It's a composition book from Dollar Tree. I also have these old book pages and some tacky glue. And I needed to protect my surface first, so I've got this craft mat. I put it in between the book. That way here I won't get glue on the other pages. Now I'm just adding some tacky glue to the cover of our book. I just put it right up against the spine of the composition book. And then I'm taking these vintage papers and tearing them up into some smaller pieces. You can use those beautiful dyed book page papers as well that are either coffee stain or onion stain or avocado, whichever stain you use, you can use those as well. Next, I'm using a plastic card and I'm just going to smooth this out. Now, you could use decoupage glue as well, but I like to use tacky glue, especially if I'm not going to go over the surface of my piece with another layer of glue. I will use this if I'm just applying a single layer of glue and then putting my paper on top. And then I don't get the sheen from the glue, but it's just personal choice. Play with whatever you have. So I am going to go ahead and just continue to cover the front of this book with the book pages until it's all covered. Allow this to dry. If you do find that there's a few spots where it's not tacked down, then go ahead and add a bit more glue. I had already trimmed off the excess paper, and now next I am going to be adding some gesso. Now you could use just plain white craft paint if you want, but I wanted to create some texture on the front. So I'm just using a palette knife and I'm just spreading it all over the surface, kind of like frosting, and just creating more of a rustic look. This is a fun technique to do, especially if you're into mixed media art. So I allowed this to dry, and you can see the different textures that we got from applying that gesso. Next, I'm going to use some gel wood stain. This is walnut wood stain, or sorry, this one is oak. I'm just using a rag to apply it and smearing it around to create a lot of different dimension to this. It will pick up into all those little crevices that were created from the gesso, and it will get soaked in by the book page as well. It just really adds to the piece, creating a vintage grungy look, and I love that look. Of course, play around with your mediums to see what kind of a look you love for a piece like this. So I had allowed this all to dry. I also did the backside, as you can see. Now we're going to embellish. I'm using a coffee dyed doily that I had done, and I'm going to fold it around, like you see me doing right here, around the spine of the book. I really think that that creates a really neat look to this piece. And then again, I'm going to be using tacky glue, but you can use decoupage glue as well. So I'm just going to apply a little bit of the tacky glue to the center of my doily, and then I'm going to put this into place. And then once I have that all in place, I will then go ahead and add some more glue underneath. I didn't add it all the way because I didn't want a lot of glue to come up through the holes of the doily. So I'm being very, very careful with how much glue I'm using. So now I'm just going to go ahead and add a little extra glue here and there, and you can add just a touch of the glue just to help hold it down on the surface of this. I'm just, again, being careful not to add too much because I don't want it to affect the texture of the doily. So I'll allow that to dry a bit, and now we can continue to embellish the front. So I am just adding my faux leather twine in the center of our book, and then I'm going to tie it on the outside of the spine. It's just for a little decoration. You could add some beads here instead, or use some twine or string. You don't even have to do this step. Decorate your journal any way you'd like. I think something like this would make a great gift, especially for somebody who likes to journal. I just like to have these types of books because I will doodle in them or jot some notes down or whatever you have. It's just so fun to have on hand. So again, these supplies this applique, was from BB Craft, and I am going to use my hot glue gun to adhere it to the front. So just figure out the placement that you want, and then you can go ahead and just work in sections and press that, apply some glue, press that down onto the surface of your journal. until you have it good and secure. So I decided to add some stamps. Stamps is a great way to decorate something like this. I really like these botanicals. I thought it was so fitting for this. I'm using some black archival ink. Of course, use any color that you'd like. A sepia would be really pretty as well. I really like this flower. I'm not exactly sure what it is, but I just love the way it looks. So I just added a few stamps to the top and the bottom. And then you can continue to add more if you'd like. Next, I'm going to be using these Tim Holtz word stickers. They're vintage. I just apply them to the front. You may need to use a little extra glue if needed. I also have these butterfly laser cut wood embellishments. I'm just adding those to the front just for a little whimsical touch. And that's it. I think this journal is so beautiful. Again, would make a wonderful gift and keepsake for anyone. For this project, I'm using the avocado skin and pit dyed paper. It's a beautiful pink. I'm also going to be using one of these wall stickers from Dollar Tree. I really like this one. I love the little florals on it, and I also thought it would fit best on the paper. I also like the message that it has. So I'm going to cut my wall sticker down just to make it so I can figure out the placement of where I want everything to go on the paper. I have decided to place these on the landscape orientation, as you see me doing here. Now I'm going to just place the wall stickers onto the paper. And I like to start by pressing it down in the middle and then smoothing it out. Next, I'm going to go ahead and add the florals. I think these florals are so pretty. It creates a bit of a wreath, like a flower wreath kind of look. So I'm going to put those into place as well. Again, same thing, start in the middle and then press them out. If you've created some natural dyed papers, what types of projects have you used your papers on? I'm curious to know if anybody else has created some home decor out of these papers as well. Next, I'm using a sturdy piece of cardboard as well as an embroidery hoop. I am working on a sturdy flat surface as well. I'm going to place the inner portion of my hoop on top of the image. This is the outer portion. I switched here to the inner ring, and now I'm going to just figure out my placement. I want to make sure my word's in the middle, and then take a pencil and trace around the hoop, just like you see me doing here. Next, I'm going to just take my scissors and cut this out. I want this image to have a nice circle. Yes, you are going to end up cutting through some of your image of the word sticker, the wall sticker, but I actually am going to utilize some of those little pieces. I'm just pulling them off, cutting them off if needed with my scissors like you see me doing right here. And then I am going to actually use them on the paper. I didn't want to let those go to waste. I'm just going to fill in a few spots with these stickers wherever I felt it needed. And I'm also trimming them off if I feel that it needs it as well, so it ends up fitting within the circle. I did have to go in and trim off on the back side, like right here, just to remove any of the excess stickers so there's no overhang. Now I'm going to, again, take that trace around the outside of the inner ring of our embroidery hoop onto the cardboard, and then I'm going to cut it out. I ended up using a craft stick, and I was very careful to cut right along my pencil line to make sure I had a nice circle to work with. I'm gonna pop that out and then just trim off if there was any like extra little bits hanging off. Make sure that my paper is going to fit on top of the circle. And again, I'm using my tacky glue and spreading it out with a plastic card. So I'm going to put my image into place and then make sure it is fitting right within the cardboard circle. And you have a little bit of time to move it around before it sticks permanently. Now I'm going to use my bone folder and just smooth it out to make sure I got all those air bubbles out. And then you can set it aside, put some weight on top and allow it to dry well. Once dry, you can now pop it into your hoop wreath. You do need to open the ring right up and then place your image in, tighten it up, and make any adjustments that you need to make sure that it doesn't pop out but is within the frame the way you like. You could add a touch of decorative little embellishment on the inside if you want in the ring. Add a ribbon, a bow, whatever you like, but I like the simplicity of how this turned out. For this project, I am going to be using a tag that I had dyed up some scrap book page paper and a doily. I didn't show in my last tutorial how I dyed tags, but it's the same process as the other papers. I'm going to be applying some of the book page to the surface of the tag. I just used a glue stick and smoothed it out with my bone folder. Go ahead and add extra glue where needed, and then you can use your scissors and just remove the excess around the tag, or you could just wrap it around and glue it on the back side of your tag. Now I'm going to be using this coffee dyed doily that I had, and I'm just wrapping it around the tag. Again, same thing. I'm using my glue stick once I've got the placement figured out. These tags are great just to use as a gift, a book marker. You can hang it on like a gift package, or you could just have it as a decorative element, frame it, do all kinds of things with these tags. Just play with them. They are so much fun to decorate. So I am going to be removing the excess doily. Again, you could just wrap it around and then glue it on the backside if you'd like. Just again adding a little bit of the glue just to help keep everything in place. So this here is a washi sticker, and I didn't like how there was so much white around the edge, so I'm just going to trim off that excess and then I'll set that aside. I'm going to be using some other little embellishments that I have as well. I'm going to again use some mice stamps that I had in stash. I had these border stamps, and I just wanted to add some texture to the tag, and stamping is a great way to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and just finish adding my stamping, and then you can add some more if you'd like. I decided that I wanted to add this pretty little wreath. I think it's such a nice little touch. Just going to add a few of those here and there. Another way is to just kind of stamp off the page like you see me doing right there, and you can see how beautiful that turned out. So for the washi sticker, I'm using this distress ink. It's called Vintage Photo, and it's by Tim Holtz. And this is not waterproof, so do keep that in mind. I just added some to the edge of the sticker, and I'm smoothing it out around the edge just to get rid of all that really stark white that was still left around the edge. So I'm just going to put that down, and now I'm just going to figure out the rest of the embellishments that I have. I have this coffee dyed cheesecloth, and I have some lace and some paper scraps. I'm just going to cut these down into smaller sizes, and I'm going to add this to the top. I find that with mixed media pieces such as this, layering creates a lot of interest and dimension. So just again, play around. It's a lot of just experimenting to see what works, what doesn't. Add something and take it away before you adhere it to whatever you are creating. So I did staple those on using a tiny attacher. It's just a mini stapler. And now I've got these book pages, and this one is coffee stained. I like to cut the words out of them, and then I will glue them onto a piece like this. It's a really great way to use up some of those old book pages that you may have left sitting around from other crafts. So I really like this one. It says Life at the Old House. I thought it was so cute and works really well with this vintage looking tag and sticker that I'm applying right here. Love that. Just gonna smooth it out with my bold folder again to get rid of any air pockets. Now I'm going to add a bit of the glue and press a bit more of the cheesecloth into place. And now I'm going to go ahead and add my words. Again, I'm using my glue stick, but you can use any glue that you like. So one extra little touch I like to do is to go around the edge of the words. It just helps to define them and bring them forward a little bit. It's just a plain black ink pen. Now I'm going to be using a makeup sponge and my vintage photo distress ink again, and I'm going to distress the edges of our tag again, just creating that vintage look. And there you have it. Here are a few other styles that I had made using all the same techniques. So this next project is actually going to be a really easy one. You'll need a clean glass jar, and I'm actually going to be using some tea-stained book paper, but of course use any of the book paper that you have in any of the dies that you have created. So I'm just going to tear some of the strips down to size. I want it to be the width of my jar, and I really want that rough, rugged edge of a torn piece of paper as well. So it depends really on the size of your jar as well as how wide your book pages are. Mine weren't that wide, so I am going to be tearing the edges down and then gluing some of the strips together. So I'm using a glue stick here. I have got one edge of the book page just torn, so you just see the words, and on the other piece you can see that I left the plain edge, and I'm just gluing those two pieces together, and I'm going to do the same thing with this third piece right here. So again, I'm just using a glue stick, adding glue to that plain page portion, and then gluing down the other piece just like you see me doing right there. And that creates a bit more of a continuity throughout this entire strip. So now I'm going to just add some glue all the way around my jar. You can use any glue that you'd like. I just wanted this to be a really quick and easy project. So I added some of the glue stick around my jar, and my paper strip was long enough, it was just long enough to go all the way around my jar. So you will need to glue some strips together until you have a long enough strip to go wrap around your jar. Just for a little added decoration and also to help hold my paper in place, I'm wrapping the jar using some jute twine. Of course, again, use whatever you'd like. I like the rustic look of jute twine, so that's why I'm going to use it. I'm just tying a simple little knot, and then I'm just going to trim off the excess. I decided that I wanted to add just a little bit more around the top. I don't want the threads from the top of the jar to really stand out, so I thought that adding a little bit of twine around the top would just help to camouflage those a bit. So I'm just going to, again, just tie it off with a simple knot. So at this point, you can leave it as is, or you can add some embellishments. I decided to use this pressed rose that I had. I'm just going to tuck it under the twine, just being very, very careful. A little piece did end up falling out, but I just glued that back into place after I was done. I'm just adding a battery operated teeter-light, and there you go, a quick and easy project for your home decor. So I'm just going to quickly show you a journal that I had recently made where I inserted some dyed papers for the signature. I will have that tutorial linked down below for you, as well as at the end of this video. It's a mix of some coffee dyed, avocado dyed, tea dyed, as well as the onion skin dyed papers. The original video didn't show the onion dyed paper, but I still wanted to show you what it looked like. For this next project, I am going to be using a blank card base. So I just picked this up from my local dollar store. I folded it in half. You could use some cardstock instead and create your own card. I'm using a mix of dyed papers, an assortment of some different papers as well. This particular piece is a printer page that is tea dyed. I have to say this tea dye actually smells really good. I must have used like a cinnamon tea or something. I'm not sure, but it smells so yummy. I am actually going to be curious to see how long that scent lasts. Anyway, so again, I'm using my glue stick, and I had folded it just so I know where to place my paper, so I have the image that I want on the exterior of my card. I'm just pressing using my bone folder. I find that the bone folder works really well to get a good adhesion between the paper and my card base. So once you've got that all in place, you can then let it set up for a bit and then trim off all the excess around the card. You can set all those little scraps aside for some other projects that you may want to do. So now that I've got my card all covered, again, I'm just going over it again with my bone folder. Here I've got some coffee dyed book page, and I'm just going to tear it down, and I'm going to use a piece of it on the front of the card. Now, again, this is kind of like mixed media, where you're just going to, or collage for that matter, you're just going to play around with the placement of your papers. I will use a glue stick for this because I just find it's the fastest. And I do like to use my bone folder again for that. Here I'm just using another coffee dyed doily. I really like these doilies. They turned out really well. I'm just going to, again, just figure out my placement for it. Sometimes I struggle with that. I don't know why. I always like to just move the papers around or embellishments around before I commit to them because sometimes I put it into place and then it doesn't look right, and then trying to remove it, you just end up making a mess. But that's me. That's how I work. I decided to leave this back piece on. I decided to wrap it around, but I needed to trim off that bottom edge first. Now I'm just gonna again use my glue stick and just adhere the doily to the back side of the card. So I'm really liking how that looks. I decided to add this little scrap that I had left to the top of the card, and I'm just careful not to add too much glue because it does pop up through the holes of the doily. Just keep that in mind. Again, just trimming off the excess of the doily, and then we've got a nice base to work with. Again, I'm going to be using these washi stickers. I love these stickers. They're so fun to use. And I'm also going to be using some stamps. I really like these leaves, and I'm going to use fern green archival ink. I'm just going to add that little leaf stamp here and there. You want to make sure you want to protect your surface that you're working on because archival ink is permanent. You might be able to get it off with alcohol. I'm not 100% sure on that. If you know, then go ahead and leave that in the comment section. Here with the washi sticker, again, I'm going to be removing that excess white around the edge. And I'm going to try and get right down in between all the flowers and leaves the best I can. And that way here, it just helps the image to stand out better. You could try playing around a little and adding color in between. I haven't tried doing that to hide all that white background, but once you have it into place, it doesn't stand out too much. So you'll just want to keep that in mind. So I'm just going to remove the backing. A little tip, you can use a piece of tape to help pull off the backing, but mine actually came out really well. So I'm just going to press that into place, and this was a really simple card to make for anybody, and you can decorate it any way you like. I'm really happy with how this turned out. You could even frame it and use it as decor. So I have my paper dyeing video for you to watch right here, along with a few other projects in another video. Thank you all so much for being here today, and we'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye.